All right, the heart. So if we start talking about the heart, okay, so the heart is this muscular organ. It's made up of cardiac tissue, and the tissue is called myocardium. So myo means muscle, so it's the heart muscle, okay? The heart's about as big as your fist normally, okay, and it's kind of towards the left side of your body. So if you pretend like you're saying the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, okay, so if you put your hand over your right hand over your heart, that's really where your heart is. Your heart's covered by a sac, which is called the pericardium, which is one of the serous membranes that we've talked about. Okay, so the pericardium is like a bag that the heart's in. There's two sides of your heart. There's the right side and the left side, and that's separated by a septum. There's actually 4 chambers. So there's 2 top chambers, which are called the atria, and then 2 bottom chambers, which are the ventricles. Okay, and then there's valves in between those. I'm going to show you in a second on the picture. Okay, and the valves, when they close, that's actually how we get our heart sounds. So the lub and the dub. So let me show you a picture, and then we'll do that. We can talk about the anatomy. Oops, come on. I don't know how to get my slide to go forward. Okay, so the 2 top chambers are called the atria. Okay, so each one is an atrium. So this is the right atrium, and this is the left atrium. They receive blood that's coming back towards the heart. Okay. The 2 bottom chambers are called the ventricles, and they receive blood, or they pump blood. They're pumping chambers. So let me see. They're pumping chambers. It's easier to see them on this picture. Okay, so we just took a cross section through this heart. So we took this heart, we cut through it. Okay, so here's the right atrium. Here's the right ventricle. Okay, here's the left atrium, here's the left ventricle. These 2 guys, the atria, are going to receive the blood that's coming back to the heart, and the ventricles are actually going to pump the blood out. Okay, now, if you look here, there are lots of big vessels. Okay, so this one and this one, these are veins. The top one is called the superior vena cava, and the bottom one's called the inferior vena cava. Okay, I wish I had a tablet. The superior vena cava drains the blood from above your head back to your heart. Inferior vena cava is going to bring the blood from below the heart back to the heart. Okay, this big red vessel right here, this is the aorta. Okay, so it's going to take blood that's oxygenated out to your body. Okay, and there's 3 branches off of it. They're going to go to your arms and to your head. Okay, now, this vessel here, this is called the pulmonary trunk. Okay, the pulmonary trunk is going to take blood that needs to get oxygen to your lungs. So it looks blue, even though it's an artery. So artery is taking the blood away. Okay, hold on, I'm going to drink. Okay, so it takes the blood away. It divides into a right and a left pulmonary artery. So each pulmonary artery is going to go to the lungs. These are pulmonary veins. We'll come back to those. All of these little things that you see on the front, these little blood vessels, these are the blood vessels that are responsible for feeding the heart muscle. So these are the vessels that take care of the heart. So if these guys get blocked, that can cause a heart attack. Okay, so the red ones on here are the arteries, the blue ones are the veins. Okay, so if we open it up, you can see the internal features. Okay, so when the blood comes in, okay, so say the blood's coming back to your heart to get pumped out. Okay, it dumps into this space, the right atrium. Then it has to go through this thing called a valve. Okay, so the valves are really to prevent the blood from going back up into the atrium. Okay, so the blood's got to go this way. These guys, the ventricles, constrict. When they constrict, we don't want the blood to go back into the atria. We want it to go out the vessels. So these valves actually close. So the valves between the atria and the ventricles are called the atrioventricular valve. The one on the right side is a tricuspid. The one on the left side is the bicuspid. Sometimes they call this one the mitral valve. Okay, now these little strings, these are called the chordae tendineae. These guys, their job is to keep the valves from going back up into the heart, to prevent the valves from prolapsing. So this is the septum in between the two ventricles. This valve here, okay, this is called the a semilunar valve. A semilunar valve is the valve that's going from the ventricles out to the vessels. So once we get the blood into the vessels, we don't want it to come back into the ventricles. Okay, so we're going to go over blood flow here in a minute, or not even a minute, in a second, and that'll help some of this make sense. But let's just kind of learn basic anatomy. So atria, ventricles. Okay, this is an AV valve, or atrioventricular valve. Another AV valve, and then semilunar valve here. There's also a semilunar valve going up this way, but you can't see it on this picture. Okay, this is the aorta, pulmonary trunk, superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, and pulmonary veins. There's lots on this slide. It seems kind of busy. Okay, now it is important that you learn the way that the blood flows through the heart. Okay, so there's an animation in the book, on the book site and in Connect, that I'll make available for you. But it's written out here. Okay, so it's a cycle. So you could really start anywhere, but we're going to start with the superior and inferior vena cava. Okay, so I want you to think about this, that the way that the blood flows, it's always going to go right, from the right side of the heart to the lungs, and then back to the left side. So you can remember right, lungs, left. Okay, so it's got to go from the right side to the lungs and then back to the left side. So the blood on the right side is oxygen poor. Okay, so it looks blue. Okay, and the blood on the left side is oxygen rich, so it looks red. This looks blue and this looks red. Did I say it backwards? Okay, so let's just start. So if we do number 1, blood dumps from the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava into the right atrium. Okay, it's going to go through this the right AV valve and into the right ventricle. Okay, then it's going to go out the semilunar valve and out the pulmonary trunk. The pulmonary trunk splits. You have 2 pulmonary arteries, and the blood goes to the lungs. And then at the lungs, we're going to have gas exchange. So we're going to drop off carbon dioxide and pick up oxygen. Okay, the blood comes back to the heart through the pulmonary veins, dumps into the left atrium, goes through the valve, goes into the right ventricle, goes through the valve, goes out the aorta, and it goes all the way out and gets delivered to your body. Okay, then after it goes through the capillaries, it drops off the oxygen, picks up the carbon dioxide. It'll go back to the heart, and it'll all start over again. Okay, how do the structure of the vessels and heart match their function? So we're always talking about how are structure and function related. Okay, so in reality, if you cut open a heart, you would see that the left ventricle is much bigger. Okay, and it's way bigger and more muscular than the right ventricle because it pumps up blood to the whole body. The right side only pumps it to the lungs. Okay, the arteries are way more muscular than the veins, because there's a lot of pressure put on them when the heart beats. They have to withstand a lot of pressure. Veins, though, they're thinner, and I say they're floppier, so they have what they carry more blood, so they have a high capacitance. Okay, now I'm going to stop here